Welcome everyone. Today we have our another new episode and we will discuss on what will AGI do that generative AI cannot. We have our world famous speaker, Mr. James Heath. After a long time, he joined in our discussions, and we have our regular speaker, Dr. Tamanna Khoshla. Uh, Mr. James Heath, what you want to discuss? What will AGI do that generative AI cannot?
Well, thank you, Sharif. This is a, a complicated topic, and we kind of have to define our terms to begin. Um, but right now, we have our AI um, applications that are responsible for certain tasks. And if we can define the tasks, then AI can improve on their efficiency and can be a great boon. But the goal would be AIG, which would allow reasoning to occur as well and can help um, uh, generative AI do their specific tasks by giving them more resources to enable to help identify, for example, medical diagnoses. These things are complicated right now, but if we can define the task specifically well enough, then an AI application can help. But with AIG, then you would have a much broader resource for the generative application to perform its tasks. So it's really a combination, but AIG is the dream. Something that can also adopt reasoning and more of an awareness to what it's doing, as opposed to just simply task-oriented, application-specific type of behavior. So that's how I define the difference, and how one is more practical nowadays and will be more practical in the near future, and the other is more future-oriented. We have not yet derived the technology to do it well.
Thank you. Dr. Tamanna Khoshla, what you want to discuss about these questions? What will AGI do that generative AI cannot? If you go for the detailed discussions, it may be helpful for our audience.
Sure. AGI is a type of artificial intelligence that understands, learns, and applies knowledge to various tasks. And AI, along with AGI, will have become a hot topic in the 21st century. Like everywhere you hear the words that what is AGI, what is AI, etc. But as James was also saying that in medical diagnosis, etc., like we have been discussing that AGI can do wonders. So it can adapt to any situation and perform any intellectual task a human can, like AI seen in science fictions. So AGI should possess abilities like abstract thinking, background knowledge, common sense, understanding causes, and and effect and transfer learning. So all these things together. Practical examples of AGI capabilities could include creativity in improving human generated code, advanced sensory perceptions. It can be used in, like right now we are having the war between Russia and Ukraine. So there's a lot of talk about, the air missiles, etc., which are being used, are using AGI, for example, AI. So so I mean, there, advanced sensory perception is something which is extremely important. So like it recognizes, it leads to color recognition and depth perception, fine motor skills like grabbing keys from a pocket, natural language understanding with context dependent intuition, and superior navigation abilities that surpass the GPS system. So it's even much uh, um, advanced than the GPS system which we use across the world right now. And advanced virtual assistants like OpenAI's GPT-3 exhibit AGI-like features with their remarkable context understanding and human-like text generation across various domains. However, current AI systems, including GPT-3, are not true AGIs as they lack human-like comprehension. So what basically what we need to do is have a perception whereby they are able to have human-like perception, that kind of a brain. And this was seen even during before 1990s, when we had the Russian chess players trying to compete with the computers. So it was even then, slightly it was starting in those areas. And a prime example of generative AI is natural language processing models like OpenAI GPT-3 and Google BERT generate coherent and contextually relevant text, enabling sophisticated applications like chatbots, content creation, and language translation. So many of these things are something which are like required by uh, the uh, world right now. Different continents are wanting something of that sort. And especially poorer countries, where resources are less. Even if the resources are more, they do not have the technology. So I guess we need to have a transfer of technologies. I guess the global south should come together, but it's not like global north shouldn't come together, but they should come together and sort out these problems in poorer countries. For example, India can help many of the African nations. We have been doing that. And so we can, in South Asia, we can collaborate and have discussions, at the leadership level, how to help each other out, and take help from the global north as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. James, can you discuss some point about the ethical and moral reasoning of AGI as well as with this generative AI? It can be helpful for our emerging economy. You know that emerging economy actually heavily depend on, you have your own foundations on developed nations for doing job and everything. If AGI and these things come, do you believe that we may lose lot of economic opportunities, and how we can solve this complex problem, and how we can have to consider these ethical issues?
Well, that is a great question, and I just wanted to double down. I think it's a great example of the difference in when we talk about uh, Gary Kasparov, the strongest human chess player in the world in the 90s, lost to Deep Blue, a computer up from IBM, and it caused a sensation in the chess world. But Deep Blue was merely a product of the faster chips. And so we had chess playing programs that got stronger and stronger because they got faster and faster at performing calculations. That's not AIG. That's not what we're talking about now. What we're talking about is a machine that got faster. But what happened in next stage was the computers started to teach themselves, rather than humans programming them and grandmasters helping the programmers program them better, more efficiently, faster. You had computers teaching other computers how to play chess and how to play chess better. And the strength of the chess computers got remarkably stronger when they were using their own intelligence to teach themselves to get stronger. Now, this is a glimpse of what AIG can do, but the ethical issues that you're mentioning now add another layer into what is it that we're asking for, and what is it that we're hoping to achieve, and is there a downside to this? And the ethical questions hit at the heart of, is there a downside to this? Because when we talk about something, computers teaching computers to get stronger, better at task performing, that's one thing. But when you add in the ability to reason, the ability to have an idea of what it wants to do, as opposed to what you tell it to do, and then what would it want to do? What would a computer, what would a calculating resource want? This is something we cannot answer now. We have science fiction stories that tell us possibilities, but we don't know exactly what would happen when a computer starts to reason, when an artificial intelligence starts to reason for itself. And the economic opportunities and the losses that can arrive from this are twofold. One is that they can perform tasks now that humans can do. And as they get better at doing things with fine motor skills, for example, then there are fewer and fewer opportunities for poor humans. who right now, labor is an important thing that humans can do that computers cannot, artificial intelligence cannot. Yet, when you add into the robotic intelligence, then all of a sudden it can perform the same tasks better, far better than a human can do. So, will this be a total loss for humanity going forward? Now, we have not gotten evidence of this to help us perceive what that would look like, but we do have speculation that what would happen when the robots, the artificial intelligences, start to reason for themselves and think about, okay, this poor human is telling me to do this, but this other alternative is far better. Let's do this other alternative. And when they have the power of choice, then where does the role of humanity still fit in? Because right now we're giving instructions. What if our instructions become ignored? And the economic problems that we set it can be solved without necessarily taking into account the human desires for, say, um, freedom and equality, economic, or maybe not economics in the way that we think of it now, but the ability to live a life of dignity. And will the robotic artificial intelligence think of that as value? So we have to make sure that whenever we still have a power to influence, that we influence it in a way that it says humanity is the prime directive. And as long as we can accomplish that, I think we're going to be okay. But if we cannot, and we allow it to think in terms of efficiency, in terms of faster, better, stronger, then there are going to be serious downsides to that. Some of them are already in the dystopian futures of science fiction.
Thank you. Dr. Tamanna, what you want to discuss about this AGI and generative AI ethical perception?
Yeah, I mean, I personally feel that, in decision making, for example, if we do not have an ethical compass, it would lead to a total disaster. For example, the way we have military right now, and if in military these technologies are used, and they could just create havoc. We have a nuclear issue as of now majorly, but if AGI, etc., they are also in place, you just imagine the kind of havoc that can make. So at the decision making level, we have to have a moral compass for sure. And why are these days we talking about ethics in every field? In every field, we are talking about ethics. Why? Because we have seen that before 1990s, still there was chances of ethicality, but after 1990s coming in of liberalization in South Asian countries as well, and Africa, it's led to a lot of disaster. And so morality, children, younger children do not have any acceptance of the fact that there is something called ethics. So till the time that doesn't happen, I mean, philosophy, etc., philosophers these days are talking about ethicality of situations whereby uh, you know whereby people can interact with each other across countries or within themselves, between poor and rich people. I mean, there has to be some kind of ethics. So AGI, for example, it has to be regulated. It can't, it can't just run without any control. So if that happens, AGI can be successful in many fields. I mean, it can be helpful. You have to, the leadership as well as the non-governmental organization needs to come into picture, and they should control the way AGIs are functioning. For example, it can be very helpful in school education, or it could be very helpful in medicine, many things. But if the way we are heading towards a third world war, I hope it doesn't happen, but like if it does, and these kind of weapons are made by AGIs, you can understand that havoc it's going to create in the world. We already are facing some of the brutal truths of the world right now, and I guess ethics is must for that reason.
Excellent. My next questions like how we can enhance the capacity of autonomous learning and adaptation. Mr. James,
I'm sorry, Sharif, can you repeat that?
like how we can develop AI oriented, because we are discussing on AI, AGI, and generative AI. So how we can develop the learning and adaptation strategy and objective for a country or a community or for an organization.
Right. One of the complicating factors in that is that there are multiple people working on this, different people in different parts of the world. And once you let the genie out of the bottle, there's no putting it back in. So, you can have a lot of people cooperating on having it being developed ethically, having it being developed for non-military purposes, and for purposes that we can guide, and then we can have others developing it for nefarious purposes. And that's going to happen. And so what we need to do is also have a strategy for safeguards. How do we control something that is unleashed upon us by forces that are not in the best interests of humanity? Because this is part of our future. It's almost inevitable that it's going to happen, because no one is controlled. No one has one, there's no one source for this artificial intelligence of the future. And this artificial intelligence of the future will be developed by people with ethics, people with good, well-meaning intentions, and by people with lesser, less higher desires and goals and aims. And they can be purely destructive in nature. And there is an element of humanity that still exists that is wanting chaos, wanting destruction, and wanting to harm others. And so, how are we going to build in safeguards as well? And this can be at the level of detection. Can you detect something that has something nefarious in its intent? How are you going to do that? I mean, that's a real challenge. So as long as developing, and it's not just simply developing it and guiding it, because that's well intentioned and well meaning, and that's hard enough to do, but also to build in the safeguards so that people that have less humane designs for this, they will be developing it too. So how do you enhance safeguards against that? So we can talk, and it's a very good question, and it's a very difficult problem to how to build ethics into it. And it's another to say, let's assume that it will be unethical in the future. What is our protection against that? Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Tamanna, as you are for academia, what's your advice?
I feel that, as Professor James is also saying, I mean, these questions are not easy questions, and and answers found to them are also not very simple answers. So I guess people from different strata of the global leadership, as well as people from the academia, from sciences and the social sciences, need to come together and discuss how can we save the earth. I mean, that's the major challenge. Environment, etc., are there, but if human beings do not exist, then where would plants exist or animals exist? So we have, it's a very important question that we have to see how people need to come together to let not allow any of these destructive forces to hold earth to ransom. I mean, that is a major problem which the world is right now facing, and we don't want to be threatened by any new wars. We want these wars to stop as well. And we don't want to see 20, 30 years from now, the technology developing so much that it can just destroy the whole world. Or by 2050, if we only rich people would be able to reach the space, for example. Not everybody can. It's again going to be the issue of people from poor countries or people from rich countries, or people within the poor countries who are rich or poor. So we don't want that to happen. So till the time, we do not come together, as a family. The globe is a family. We all are part of each other's living. We have to encourage each other, and not fight over petty issues, I mean, which can be solvable. Those issues which can be solved through diplomacy, dialogue, etc., are being taken to war. I know there are issues which are historically difficult to handle, or taken care of, but still there is nothing which, if taken care by the leadership and people with well-meaning, the spiritual leaders. I hope they are not politicians, because many of them are politicians, but normal people who are like wishing well for the world, for every human being, or for the last person on this earth who is without any resources. Bentham said that the last person should not be neglected. So we have to see that people from different strata of the world come together, and nobody is harmed, and the best possible solution to global destruction is taken care of.
Mhm. Thank you. My next question's about uh, self-awareness. Uh, what do you think? How this kind of AGI, as well as this kind of artificial intelligence, create self-awareness, and how they can solve different kind of industrial problem, Mr. James Eid.
Yes. If it, the that is the future, what is really what we think of as the ultimate for artificial intelligence when it becomes self-reasoning. Um, and perhaps, although we don't have a clear definition of consciousness, it becomes conscious. And one of the things that I think is the way to uh, help it form this consciousness is to make peace one of its primary uh, motives, one of its primary objectives, and to ensure that everyone can live a life of quiet dignity. And this sounds like a small thing, but it's not something that we've ever been successful at as a species. Um, and so, can an artificial self-aware intelligence have that as its primary objective? And can we create such an entity? And when it comes into existence, can it provide everyone with the opportunity to live a life of quiet dignity, to have the resources they need to survive, but also to be comfortable, to be dignified? And these are things that we don't do today. We don't do in the most prosperous countries in the world. We don't do. We still have people suffering in poverty, suffering from hunger, suffering from all sorts of things that are something that we can prevent. We don't prioritize it today, but if we can have an ally that is artificially generated but self-aware, with instilled in it the sense of equality, the sense of dignity, a sense of peace, that we should be able to coexist peacefully with everyone, does not need anything else, does not need to take from someone else because they have enough. And if it is self-aware in that way, that is the purpose, that is the reason it exists, to create that environment, then that would be an ally to humanity. And where can we do that? And how can we help? How can it help with primary, secondary education? Of course, when we start to instill that in an artificial intelligence, it can also instill that in humanity. From a very early age, you can be trained on cooperation rather than competition, on helping one another rather than competing against one another, to share rather than to take. These can be instilled in young children as well. So if we can create an ally for humanity, and this is a big if, but if we can, it can prevent other aggressive artificial intelligences from destroying the earth, to put it simply. Um, and it can be the resource that we need to prevent hostile artificial intelligence, which will be built. They will be developed. So when we have an ally that is peace oriented to diffuse anything that could be a danger, this opens up another question of, well, what will it perceive to be dangerous? Will it perceive humans to be dangerous? There's a million questions that we could ask ourselves about this, but the idea of building an ally, something that we don't use be, to dominate the world for ourselves, for our self-interest. Because one of the problems with capitalist society is you think your rational self-interest is what you should pursue, but really the bottom line is it's your enlightened self-interest that you should pursue, and the enlightened self-interest takes into account your economy, your community rather. And we have a global economy, but we have yet to develop a global community. And artificial intelligence that is properly developed and properly conceived and properly conscious can be the ally that we need to create a community. Because as the doctor said, we are one people, one species. We're all inhabiting the same planet, but we don't act that way. Maybe we can be trained to act that way. Thanks.
Thank you. Dr. Tamanna Kushla.
Can you please repeat the question?
Uh, my questions like how we can create self-awareness as well as create solve different kind of problem from the industry through AGI and generative AI.
Yeah. So what we can do is like we can have we need to have a syllabi of the nature in every university, every school. At from the kindergarten itself, we have to, because what generation before 1990 had a view on computers is very different from the generation after 1990, who are like was just born that time. So that the distinction is very different, and now the children are learning it at a very early age. So I guess morality and ethics at a very young age need to be put into the brains of children, because for example, pornography, all those kind of things, from a very young age, you have to make them understand what is the problem with certain kind of issues, and what needs to be done to um, have a better world. We all are like sisters and brothers. It's like if we can help somebody out there, within the intra country or inter country, we should do that, intercontinent as well. We should not have ICBMs, we should have intercontinental friendships rather than having ICBMs. So I guess education at the university level, having interaction with different university people, teachers, researchers coming together. And the best part would be if the doctors and other practitioners would come together, as in like people from psychology or political theory or philosophy, people coming together and understanding the issue, and trying to create awareness about the concept of AGI, etc., and their use, proper use. Would be the word. It should be done in a way which is like ethical and moral, so that we do not use it in a way to harm other human beings or other species or the environment. For example, it should not be used for polluting. Any technology which has to be used right now has to be for use of the world rather than misuse. So it can be used for space travel, but it should not be used to pollute the space. So those kind of things are there. I guess we will be able to achieve what we really want to. And as Professor James is also saying, we need to have all of these things together in the humanity, and these things are important. Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. James said how we can develop sustainable world through this AGI, through this generative AI, or what will be the better strategy for us?
Yes, this is at its heart the goal to develop a sustainable world, and we have a very poor track record of doing that as a species ourselves. Um, this is why I think of the artificially generated intelligence as an ally, because one day. We're not just talking about, and children can absorb information that we don't give them enough credit. They can absorb ethical questions, and they can struggle with them and worry about them and think about them, and they can develop a moral compass quite early in their lives if they are presented with the information in a proper context, which we've never been able to do very well as a species. But what we've neglected so far to mention is that the future can include artificial implants into our brains. And this can make us more aware of one another, and change communication between us in a dramatic way, um, so that we do not think of the other as an enemy, but we think of another as a friend. And this is the way that we can start to build a sustainable life on this planet, because we would automatically resist developing technologies that would be harmful to the planet, harmful to other species, harmful to other people. And we would be focused on developing technologies that were beneficial, because the robotic intelligence and robotic deftness of their motor skills is going to increase to the level that there can be much of the sustainability issues taken taken in hand by uh, non-human uh, interventions, non-human ways of dealing with, like, do we need to build an aqueduct? It can be done so much more efficiently than we can do today. And it can be done, water sources are going to be incredibly important in the future, and they can be solved in ways that do not harm some to benefit others. And if we have this type of ally doing these types of calculations, how do we get water to all in sufficient quantities? Set that as a problem and have it solve it. And then these types of resource constrictions, resource scarcity that drives us into contention today, these can be eliminated. And when we have this type of ally helping us achieve enough for everyone, then we no longer have to engage in the I must have enough for me, whether or not it means I take from you. And when we can live in such an environment, then our nature, we've seen this. There have been plenty of societies developed when there is sufficient for all, then they no longer need to go to war to get more. They no longer need to take. They can share, they can give. And it's certainly been true in my life. When I live a life of giving and sharing, I am more content and happy myself. And when I live a life of taking and achieving and acquiring, um, then I'm fundamentally discontented. So I see a future society with artificially generated intelligence as our ally, creating a society where people are just more content, happier than they've ever been in our history. Now, there's all sorts of scenarios. Now, the happy and content isn't going to sell novels, isn't going to make movies, but the dystopian outcomes, they sell. They will. People like to see them and think about them. But that's only one of the possibilities. There is another possibility that we can develop artificially generated intelligence that is an ally, and is not it's not something where it's hierarchical. We're above them or they're above us. They're helping us achieve what we've always wanted to achieve, which is a contentment, a peace, a serenity that has been um, so hard to obtain, and difficult to hang on to throughout our lives. People have had to isolate in order to do this. And but it can be done in communities. You go to a kibbutz in Israel, for example. These are people that share. These are people that look out for one another. There have been many such examples throughout our history. It is not human nature to hunt and to kill. It is not human nature to do those types of things. Only for survival do we do those types of things. And when the need to survive is given to us already, then we no longer have to practice those primitive instincts that it can be so devastating and harmful to our interactions with one another. And we can be happy and content with our lives and take joy in the happiness and contentment of others. It's possible. It's not necessarily likely, but it's certainly possible. And we have to have an ally to accomplish it. And that could be artificially generated intelligence. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tamanna. What you want to discuss about the sustainable developments?
Yeah, I guess sustainable development goals, for example, which have been set by UN, and what is being used uh, is being used as a buzzword everywhere across the world. For example, in India too, we are talking about SDGs. So water, land, people, genders, etc. Many of these goals are laid down. So sustainable development talks about how we can make a world which is sustainable by its own self, rather than by any other crooked means. So the concept behind SDG is very noble, and that has to be carried forward for sure. What we need is that we are not enemies. That is, we have to spread that message across the world, and at a very young age, that concept, as Professor James is also saying, can be instilled in children, that we have to cooperate rather than compete. It is going to be a maddening world right now, where people are competing crazily against each other. For what reason? I don't know. It's a very small life. Why are we competing with each other? I guess we should be cooperating, and I guess by competing, not the best is going to come out in people, but when they're cooperating, we can enhance the level of our performance by being cooperative with each other. So the cooperation has to start from a very young age. What parents do is, please, you tell their child, I use just speak, this child is, she or he is very good in music, or she or he is very good in math or something of that sort. The other person will say the same, she is very good in social sciences, or she's whatever. So the competition at a very young age is started. I should come first, or you should come first. Or for example, in the race, this child has come first, or those kind of competition is okay, but it should be a healthy competition, whereby we are cooperating with each other. We have to understand we live in a world where sustainable development goals have to be achieved to survive. If we are unable to survive, it's going to be a disaster. What West did was, two centuries ago, maddeningly they expanded and killed and brought people under slavery from Africa, Asia, etc., Pacific. So all these things have to now change. Now the West has to understand, and I know the people out there are amazingly good. They understand everything so well, but it's only the leadership which is doing all these things. So I guess the people of the world have to come together through dialogue, etc., and transfer the thought of each other's cultures to each other, and bring out the best possible solutions to problems like water, ozone layer, etc. Many of these problems, which are like seem unsolvable right now because of the technology which we have used as of now. So AGI, etc., you have to use such technologies so that we do not ruin our environment or people further. So, that diktat has to be given to these technologies, that the best possible solution to any kind of pollution, be it of your personal nature, or the elites, the way they perform. By elites, I don't mean they're like very intellectually high, But what I'm trying to say is that they hold power. So there has to be a pressure from within the countries, for the leadership to perform in a particular way. So for example, the warring nations, people have to come together within the countries, to pressurize their own leadership to stop these kind of uh, problems. So yeah.
Thank you. Mr. James, what is the impact and what is the closing remarks for today's sessions?
Um, Thank you, Sharif, for the opportunity to speak about this because, I don't think we need to be afraid of the future, afraid of uh, technology. I think that what we often become fear is one of the things that drives us into our worst behaviors. And what we want to do is embrace the possibilities and to be optimistic in our assessment of the future, and to think about generating an artificial intelligence that is our ally, that is will be our help to become better human beings. Because our goal is to evolve as human beings. And the way we are going now, we won't have a chance to evolve because we are poisoning our planet. We're poisoning the air that we breathe. Water is becoming scarcer and scarcer. And we think that we have places that we can move to be safe. And those places will become scarce in the future. So we must change the way we think. We must change the way we interact with one another. And I'm less than optimistic that we can do so because evolution takes time. Evolution, when we want to evolve as a species, we can do it over time if given enough time. But our technology has developed to the point, and it's accelerating. The rapid pace of technological change is accelerating. Um, we will run out of time if we continue on our path. And one of the things that gives me hope is that if we can create an artificially generated intelligence that is our ally, that makes us look for the best in ourselves, is part of our best nature, trains us from when we're very young to think about what is best for all of us, to have enlightened self-interest rather than rational self-interest. We don't pursue rational self-interest because it's the same as selfish, as being selfish, thinking only of oneself. When you think about your community and your community now, we have learned space is shortened, time is shortened. We can go anywhere in the world now where it was almost impossible to think of doing so in the past. For most of our species' existence, it was impossible to traverse the distances that we can traverse today. So this global community, this global environment, this community as a species must adapt to this under, existential understanding that we're in this together. And we can have an ally performing the tasks that are mundane and repetitive, doing the types of things that no one really wants to do, that aren't humane activities in themselves, and free people to pursue things like music, things like art, things that they like to do. And it could be bronze sculptures. It could be types of things that you do with your hands. You would be free. You would have the opportunity to exercise your power of choice in the activities that you want to do. And when you're allowed, you have the subsistence needs met. You have your ability to survive met. You have no need to worry about someone coming and taking it from you. And you can pursue what your interests are, what motivates you, what makes you happy. Then this is another step in the evolution of the human species. But it's part of our nature to build allies. It's part of our nature. It's part of our evolution that we can create artificially generated intelligence to assist them, not to help us conquer others, but to assist us in our evolutionary path. And if we can do that as a species, our survival will be taken care of, and our future can be profoundly better than our past. Thank you, Sharif, for the opportunity to talk about this.
Thank you, Dr. Taman, Mr. James. So, Dr. Tamanna, what's the impact of AGI? And what is your closing remarks for today's session?
Yeah, so what I feel is that, technology should not control humans, but humans should control technology. So, AGI represents a living ethical algorithm, one that evolves and grows in tandem with human society. This symbiotic relationship between technology and ethics is a beacon of hope in our pursuit of a fairer and a more just society. So, AGI's role in ethical decision making represents a seismic shift in our relationship with technology. It heralds a future where technology is not just a tool for efficiency, but a partner in our moral and ethical journey. The implications of this shift are profound, touching every aspect of our lives, from governance and healthcare to education and personal autonomy. So it's going to be used everywhere. So we have to be extremely cautious. As we stand on the cusp of a new era, AGI offers a vision of future where technology and humanity collaborate to create a world that is not only smarter but also fairer, more just, and deeply humane. All of us are looking forward to a society which is more humane, so a world, a cosmopolitan culture whereby technology is harnessing new um, patterns of living which are sustainable and which can help people grow uh, spiritually as well as uh, uh, in their environments, building new situations as well as new patterns of ethical world. That's what I. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining today's session. I request all of our audience please share our content as much as possible. Thank you. Bye bye and take care.